Okay, everybody comfortable? Cell phones off, right? Okay, here we go.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another installment of FYC in Conversation. If you're unfamiliar with this particular iteration of the show,
It's not a surprise because we haven't done it before.
we have actually. There is an In Conversation episode with author and novelizationist, I'm not sure what the term would be, Alan Dean Foster, who's very well known for being the writer who did the Star Wars novelization and the Alien novelization and dozens and sundry many novelizations since then, including his own work.
Yeah, but I wasn't there and I don't listen to the show, so I forget this stuff.
And that is one of the cool things about this episode, because last time Dustin wasn't available and it was just me going solo, and this time around my esteemed co-host was present. I was really excited about that because it created like that third party dynamic, which is always really cool.
You have the sycophant, you have the person who doesn't know who the heck he's talking to, and then the interviewee.
And then the other cool thing about this episode is that this time around we're actually talking to a filmmaker, not just somebody kind of tangentially connected to the industry, as Alan was. And this time around we're going to be talking to Canadian writer, director, Peter Ricq. Now, Peter, among filmmaking, various other talents, he's an artist, a writer, creates graphic novels, he's worked on animated series.
Musician, where you first heard him.
That's right, a musician with a great Canadian, semi-defunct Canadian band called Humans. And Peter made a movie, I think in 2017, and that was a little independent film called Dead Shack, which both Dustin and I checked out and really quite enjoyed. And Peter was
Gracious enough to let us talk to him about it. And experiences in filmmaking and writing and stuff and junk.
And Peter was super fun to talk to. It's actually, this will be a somewhat lengthy conversation.
As you can tell from the playing time that's on your screen right now.
And just a warning for anybody going into it, there is a point, probably like the last 20 minutes of the interview are literally just us talking about other movies that we enjoy and just kind of other stuff that we're into and some of Peter's other projects. The conversation about Dead Shack specific is primarily in that first hour. It's about an hour and a half of chat, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I've kind of cut it together, but it was fun. It was really fun. And it was a great movie.
We recommend watching it. We don't recommend listening to this interview over top of it. I don't think it'll sync up quite like Dark Side of the Moon did, you know?
And also, I just want to point out that in the conversation, we do reference the fact that the streaming service Shudder, it has Dead Shack in the US, but not in Canada. But in the time that we conducted the interview, and today when we're recording this, which is July 15th, 2020, Dead Shack has been introduced to Canadian Shudder. So if you do subscribe to the Shudder streaming service, whether you're in the US or Canada, you can watch Dead Shack, which is fabulous.
Check it out.
Check it out. And speaking of check it out, let's check out the conversation. Do you have any last thing you want to say before we flip it over?
Tried to come up with something clever, could not do it.
Excellent. All right. We'll let you guys head into the interview, and we will catch you on the flip side with a little bit of outro, and enjoy. Guest who is a writer, a director, a musician, artist, designer, animator. Have I missed anything, Peter?
A few, but it's okay.
Basically, all around makes us feel like we're not doing anything with our lives kind of person.
Our guest this time is Peter Ricq. Peter, welcome to the show.
Hi, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now, I recently, as I said, Peter is also a musician. I'm a huge fan of his band Humans, which sadly, I guess you guys no longer exist.
Yeah, no. Well, we're taking a long break. Maybe we'll do. We decided that let's make a song one or two like a year, but I don't even know if that's gonna happen. Maybe every 4 years. And we're gonna have a couple dates, final dates, like in Vancouver and Victoria, BC. But COVID happened, so everything is on. I don't know. We don't know if we're gonna do it again or when. So you might have seen the last show, actually.
I don't know if it's sad to say, but seeing your guys' farewell show in Edmonton was the last cool thing I think I did before COVID shut everything
That was
down.
before it all happened, right? So yeah.
But yeah, it was at that show that I was talking to Peter at the merch table, and we were talking about his music videos, and we were talking about Dead Shack and how I was like still hadn't seen it but wanted to, and Peter told me about a project that he's currently kind of trying to get started, and I said, well, hey, I got a podcast, you should come on the show and we can promote your new movie when that kind of starts rolling. And he said, well, why don't we talk about the old movie? And I said, but didn't that movie come out a few years ago? And he was like, yeah, but nobody saw it. So I was like, all right, let's talk about the old movie and we'll promote the shit out of it. So
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, it's new. So
exactly.
It's new to me.
Everything's new to someone. So I wanted to start with I know just from my research that Dead Shack was it was a long road to getting to the actual making of the film, from inception to photography and release. So what was that road kind of like for you?
Well, so I always try to write these really expensive movies, $80 million movies. And then I watched the Fright Night remake one year when that came out, and I really liked it. And when I got home, I decided, can I swear on this?
As much as you want.
Okay. I was like, why am I always writing these movies or trying to make these movies that are never going to happen, instead of writing a low budget horror comedy, which is I love those since I was a kid, especially Fright Night. And the Fright Night remake I thought was really good, and I was like, why don't I just try to do something like this, like not many characters, very few locations, and in mind, write it so it's low budget. So I came up with the idea and just wrote it all by myself, like in 3 days when I got home. And then I showed it to my friends who I was co-creating TV shows with, Phil and Dav. We've done several animated TV series, and they write for a living, and I'm more like at that time I was a pretty bad writer, but I came up with a lot of good ideas. Like I'm a lot better on like visually, and that's why a lot of my films are more visual and less, like, it definitely got better over the years.
And that's why you have a team anyway, bounce ideas off of people.
Yeah, and so they hated my idea. So I told Phil, I was like, read this. He's like, yeah, it's, I don't know. I was like, well, this is why it's good, and this is why you should help me write it. Like, go from outline to script. And he said, oh, well, I don't know. Let's see if I can get Dav into it. And then he pitched it to Dav, and Dav says, like, no, I don't like it. This is crap. And then he told Dav why it's good and why he should do it. So then we ended up all writing it together, and we had like the third draft or something like that. And then I showed it to a friend of mine, Ricq, and he said it's too short, it's very B-movie, and it's not that good. So he told me to read a story by Robert McKee, I think, and Save the Cat, and then maybe rewrite the script based off everything I've learned from that. So I did do that. I figured out a bunch of stuff that would make the story better, and also the formatting of the script was very animated film, because that's what we were used to. So learning how to write more of a live action feature. And then
now, sorry, would the difference between the animated script and the live action just be like a lot more stage direction?
It's also the way you number the lines, not writing people screaming, not describing the way they actually pronounce, or it's just, there's a lot of difference. Because I guess an animator, you're more like the director and an actor, and in live action you let the actors do things, and also
right.
The numbering of the scenes, and also how you write the sound effects is different. So
unless you want to have them repeat the same line 50 times in a row, go all Kubrick on them.
Yeah, or like you don't write that. You just say someone screaming in a live action script. Yeah, there's just like a lot of things that we weren't used to. And probably that threw people off when they would read it. It's like, what the fuck is this? So
when you were talking about the budget, actually, you talk about writing for an $80 million budget. How do you sort of gauge that just off of ideas and storyboards?
The $80 million movies I was getting together were like big sci-fi epics. big fantasy films.
So just sort of a guesstimation out.
Yeah, I mean,
Out in the
I'm
blue.
pretty good at guessing how much a movie costs. Like, because from watching movies, I watch maybe 1 or 2 movies a day,
Well, you've
and
also done like a number of music videos, and
yeah,
you,
yeah.
you have some experience like filming and budgeting, and yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and every time I guess like the budget of a movie, I'm pretty damn close. So when I guess like, oh, my movie's probably gonna be $80 million, yeah, I'm pretty good. So yeah, what I was saying was we rewrote the script and it still wasn't there. I asked my friend, well, I guess some other notes, and he didn't want to do it. He had a kid then, and he's like, Pete, I already spent like a year of my time on this project, or 2 years, and it's not going to go anywhere. And then I told him that I was going to shoot a proof of concept trailer for 10K or 5K, which ended up costing me 15K of my own money. And as I was editing on a Premiere, I shot some footage off my phone and sent it to him and told him, hey man, this actually looks like a real movie. It looks pretty good. Like I think we got something here. And when Phil saw that, he decided, okay, fuck yeah, this looks real. I'm gonna do those notes and get it back to you, and let's get this movie made. So yeah, that whole thing got put together, and then we had the new draft that I felt pretty, confident about. And with Phil's agent, I went to Whistler and met with several producers, and one of them was Amber Ripley, who is the producer on the film, and she said she was interested. And then didn't talk to her for about a year and a half because my friend's agent said that Ridley Scott was looking to do these $3 to $4 million movies in Ireland, and also the guy who from Resident Evil, I forgot his name, but
Don Carmody?
yeah, that guy. Yeah, I think that's
Or Jeremy Bolt?
no, I think it's Don. You're right.
Yeah, I think Carmody's Canadian, so.
Okay. And she said he was interested, and then after a year and a half of not hearing anything and just just waiting for nothing, I hit up Amber Ripley and asked if she was down, and she said yeah. So met up with her and signed with her, and then that agent was pissed. She's like, Pete, I've been working on all these meetings. What the fuck are you doing? I said, well, I haven't heard anything. I don't know what you were doing. So I just went along and got, signed with Amber, and I like Amber. She's awesome. And then
After a year and a half, what are you supposed to do other than assume you've been ghosted?
yeah, exactly. So, and then Amber, she a year and a half later after that, she got the money, and things just started rolling, and there you go.
So what were the shortfalls in the early scripts or outlines? Like what did you actually have to iron out? Just dialogue or
Yeah, because
pacing? Or
the story from my original outline, beat per beat, is pretty much the exact same thing. So it's weird that my friends were saying that my story sucked because the story is pretty much exactly the same. What's just different? It was just, I guess, well, we changed the neighbor was originally a man in my original story, and we turned it to a mother.
That was actually kind of a cool choice. And having Lauren Holly in there was pretty awesome as well.
Yeah, we got lucky with that for sure.
It definitely made the luring portion of it a bit more amusing, just seeing how much he did not like those guys and how they didn't care at all because they're like, dude, we're getting laid, yeah.
Yeah, because imagine if it was, a guy luring women and then seeing the women again turn into zombies. I don't think it would have worked as well.
It would have been less funny, that's for sure. A lot more creepy.
And more, cringy and, and creepy. So that was a really good choice. I think Dav came up with that one, so that was really nice of him and thoughtful. Yeah, you know what? I can't remember, but it definitely did get better, the script. I think just like making the jokes better, less on the nose.
That was actually something that we were talking about as we were watching it because and I've heard in other interviews, I guess you've had comments on the dialogue and the humor. We felt like it's a hilarious movie. Like the jokes are really, really great, but they're not like nobody is mugging. Nobody is like, here's my funny for this scene. It's just, it just all rolls out. It's just, this is who the characters are and it comes out of their personality.
It feels natural, and that's always so important when it comes to any of these films, other than just a bunch of throwaway characters like, oh, here's girl number 2 who dies at some point in the film, I guess.
Yeah.
I wondered how much of that was the actor and how much of that was like right out of dialogue?
Well, Donovan, he worked on the scenes a lot and shortened it because we didn't have a lot of time. So he's also a writer, and he's been acting for a long time. He's the father,
Right.
and with having the kids there, I don't know. I think that's why the moments where he's in, because he got to. While we were working on shooting the whole thing, he was working very tightly with the kids and tightening the script because we didn't have a lot of time, and so he did help a lot. It's not like he did rewrites, but he definitely shortened things and added a few things there, and with his comedy background, he definitely helped and did add a few things. The scenes where he's not in and the kids are alone, that also worked great. They were basically just doing the script as was, and it worked. But I think everyone agrees that the Donovan scenes always have a bit more flair to it.
They also sort of subvert, like, it's very much coming from character, and the character is creating situations that are exacerbating the problem because he has to go and see the cannibals. He has to go inside the house. Like, he has to do all of these things, and he's creating situations that the kids have to deal with. And he's making more tension because he's, like, keeping them in the house, and they don't know when the bad guys are coming back. But at no point does it really feel...
It doesn't feel forced because a parent would be like, look, there's not going to be a crazy killer just the other cabin down.
Yeah.
Like, let's just go over and check this out. And he's drunk, so he's not very bright at what he's doing.
I've met some people who said they didn't like the movie because the dad is so unrealistic and he does that, and it just took him out of the script. But I know some people who are like that.
He's
Absolutely.
unrealistic for a tropey genre movie because he's not following those tropes. He's not doing the things the beat by beat that you expect a horror movie to kind of go by. He's actually acting like a real human being who's like,
If this were a typical
your
horror
teenagers
movie,
are telling you cannibals are next door. Like,
Yeah.
if this were a typical horror movie,
Smart, and the dad is the teenager. It's like the roles are reversed.
if it were a typical horror movie, you'd expect the father to be like, no, nothing's happening, and then ignore the kids who then have to run off and do stuff themselves until eventually whatever evil is there sneaks up on the adults and usually takes them out. And that's your tropey nonsense. So it always makes me wonder, what are people expecting when they go into a film?
Yeah.
And normally I'm happy when my expectations are subverted.
Ah, great. Yes, I like that too.
so how long was that actual process, doing all the work on the script and like from beginning to end where you were actually in production?
It was about 4 years of waiting and trying to push it.
So 4 years getting it into production and 4 years since you've made the film. It's been a while.
Yeah.
And how long to actually film it in between?
The filming of the movie was 14 days, and then we had 2 months. I had 2 months to edit and write the score, and then after that we had a couple weeks. I think 2 weeks for color correcting, or a couple days. I can't remember. With the final sound mix.
One of the things that I thought about, like when I first heard that you had made the film, and I was like, oh, it's a horror comedy and it's a zombie movie, I thought a lot of indie filmmakers will go horror. I mean, going all the way back to like, Sam Raimi doing Evil Dead, because horror sells, right? Even though it's got effects and stuff, you have kind of a better chance of getting some return on your investment. Throwing the comedy in is very sort of now, and zombies are in the zeitgeist. So I kind of wondered if that was where you were like, okay, I want to make a feature, so let's kind of move these elements around, or if this was just an idea that kind of came out sort of independent of all that other stuff.
It was independent of that because also horror comedies don't make a lot of money, and people usually hate horror comedies. I thought people loved horror comedies, but I found out that, no, people really hate horror comedies.
That actually shocks me as well.
Well, to an extent it makes sense, because although horror and comedy can go together, they also fight very much against each other. So unless it meshes perfectly, the horror is going to take away from the comedy, and the comedy is going to take away from the horror, and sometimes it's too black, the comedy. Yeah,
and also, because I've since written a couple of horror comedies and trying to get those made, and the most feedback is that they don't want to do horror comedies. Like, they won't even read the script because it was pitched as a horror comedy. And then I tell them, like, well, Get Out is a horror comedy. He's like, no, Get Out is not a horror comedy. was like, yes, it is. Like, no, it's a political statement, blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, I've never laughed that hard at a horror movie before. Like, when he talks about the sex slaves part in the police department, that was fucking hilarious. And then it's also fucking scary. How can you say...
There's a very over-the-top humorous friend in that movie to sort of leaven the horror.
Yeah, and then
Like, it's...
Stranger Things is like one of the biggest TV shows in the world, and that is also a horror comedy, but they don't call it a horror comedy. It's just a bit backwards. People don't know what they like. You know?
They don't call any of the superhero movies out now action comedies, and they keep
Yeah,
throwing in your
totally.
comedy elements, which
Yeah.
ruins the drama.
Yeah.
I guess when there are those moments where you have like a Shaun of the Dead or, you know, a horror comedy that actually does succeed, that kind of sticks in your head and you just figure that
Yeah.
that's...
And also, I really like zombie movies, like, you know, the good ones. And I've always wanted to do one. And I was like, okay, well, zombie movies are pretty cheap to make, so let's just do that. I was thinking of budget and things I like.
Now, you wanted to make a zombie movie and you said that you were thinking of budget, but zombie movies, of course, involve blood, involve makeup, prosthetics,
Usually guns and
severed
possibly
limbs.
some destruction
but
of
you don't
whatever
need
area.
Special effects. I didn't want to do everything in camera too, and I didn't want any CGI because then it would look like shit. And if you want to look great, you got to spend a lot of money. So zombie movies, all you do is like slap a bit of makeup on there and some raggedy clothes and blood. Blood is cheap, and then tubes to pump the blood. That's also pretty cheap, as opposed to having somebody turn into a werewolf or an invisible man or shit like that.
Fair enough.
Actually, one thing that I thought was great about this film was the scale was so much smaller than a lot of other zombie movies.
Yeah,
It's
and also-
just the woman and her family.
Yeah, so I was thinking, how can I make a zombie movie that is not the end of the world? And then I figured, how about this family is just self-contained zombie, and it kind of works. I didn't explain it. I don't think like some people who didn't like the movie, they were upset that I didn't explain where the zombies come from. But even the movies that do explain it, it doesn't make any sense, and you don't even know exactly where it comes from. So, and everybody has an idea of how zombies would happen. So, like, why bother explaining it? And you think everyone who has a disease can explain where it comes from? Like, everyone who got COVID or SARS, do they exactly know where it came from? You just want to get better and then not even think about it.
It's actually something I feel is very North American, wanting to be sort of spoon-fed the reasons in the whole story.
Yeah.
I know at a certain point I was thinking, I wonder where the woman's family got it from, and then I was thinking, wait a second, if she's been doing this for 10 years, she could easily have gotten rid of the other ones, whatever one single event happened, and just kept it self-contained. Why do I need an explanation? I don't need to know that. It doesn't matter.
There's a whole prequel movie in there somewhere.
There is a
10 years ago.
I would want to make it one day, but there's been no interest money-wise, so we've never went through with it. But it was going to be the how it all started, how the mom was really nice and loving, and the family was there. And then the husband, like the way we saw it is he came from Africa and got from an excursion at a cave and came back and was feeling sick, and then started getting the symptoms and getting the kids sick. And then it'd be fun to see her transitioning from a loving mother to a killer that lures men to feed her family.
I want to see this movie.
Sounds amazing. It sounds great. Like, I want to see this movie.
Sounds a little sort of Dead Alive.
Yeah.
Peter Jackson old film. Gotta hide it. Now I gotta move my family over to this cabin in the woods.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. I mean, like you said, if he brought it over from somewhere else and the infection started and she managed to contain the infection and she's out in the middle of nowhere.
Obviously it's not an apocalypse, because 10 years down the road nobody knows about this shit.
Yeah. There are ants who are zombies, so I think they are in Africa. You've heard about that?
Yeah, it's actually the same thing that they have as the zombies for The Last of Us. Cordyceps zombies. They infect the base of the brain of the ant and force them to go to a very specific leaf that is an exact temperature and has the certain amount of shade so that it can blow up and cause the fungal spores to spread everywhere else.
Crazy. Yeah, so I heard of that, not in that detail, and then so I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So, but we never bother explaining in the movie because Why the fuck would Lord Holly explain to kids like, and this is where it all happened? You know, I hate when movies do that. It's like, okay.
Now that I've got you captured, I will explain in
Yeah.
detail the entire plot of the movie. Because I'm really bored. I haven't talked to anyone in a long time, and my husband he listens, but that's it.
But does he actually really listen?
You know, you get what I'm putting out here?
I actually felt like that non-explanation that just zombies are out there and you don't know why. It was another thing that sort of subverted the genre and the tropes that you're so used to, especially since there's been a proliferation of zombie films over the last like decade and stories, you know, The Walking Dead and all that stuff. It's like It's always a pandemic, it's always global, it's always, you know, this big thing and how are humans going to survive, and this was just really localized. And knowing what I know about film production, I had the same question that Dustin did, where I was like, well, where did the zombie family come from? And then I was like, oh, well, Peter probably just had X amount of time and X amount of money, and I was fine with that. But looking at it from kind of a wider narrative sort of perspective, I mean, it's a much more intimate, it's about the kids and it's about that family and it's about these two neighbors.
And honestly,
That's all you
zombies
need.
are the easiest apocalypse to stop. I mean, it starts with a couple of people and they're really slow moving. And even in the film, I was wondering for a bit, do they know it's a zombie? Or are they going to just say that it's a zombie? They didn't quite say it, but they knew.
I thought you were going to come out with your nitpick.
As the guy starts changing, who's tied up, they're like, shit, let's just kick him into the cellar because he's one of them now. They didn't question it. They didn't start throwing out theories. It was just like, fuck, whatever this is, it's spreading. And even though we're friggin' kids who have no combat experience, we can contain it. And they did. And quite frankly, anyone could.
Yeah, I didn't want them to say the word zombie. And he also says it once. He's like, were those like, yeah, shut up. Just.
Let me think.
Yeah.
Now, in other interviews that I've checked out preparing for this conversation, I did hear you say that there was a larger movie that existed in your head that you were actually like scratching out storyboards saying, okay, we can't afford that, we don't have time for that. What version of Dead Shack did we not get?
So I storyboarded the whole movie, and there's a lot of scenes that aren't in the movie. Some of them, there's one scene that I'm glad is not in the movie, where at the beginning when they drive in the van, Roger is in the back rolling a joint, and he gets Jason to drive the car for him, and he's like, what? It's like, yeah, come on, it's fucking easy. It's automatic. You just step on the gas and you get the wheel. Like, don't be a pussy.
Which in a way explains a 14-year-old driving and why he says, I'm drunk and a little bit high.
Yeah. And also, the fact that he teaches him how to drive at the end when he hits Lauren Holly and steps out of the car, it's like, oh, because he knows how to drive because Roger taught him, you know?
Right.
It was a bit of like, that was neat, but it was just a bit cheesy, and I'm kind of glad we didn't get the money to shoot that part. But besides that, there were a few more zombies, like in the car parking lot, when they're searching for the cars. You actually see the kids going in the parking lot and going through cars, and Colin, he opens one, he's like, oh, there's one car that the key fits, sick. And then there was actually a zombie in the back, and he's about to bite him, and he like shotguns the head off, and then he's like, okay, I got the car, but it's there's like blood everywhere, but it works. So they were gonna drive away with like a zombie car. And then all the action scenes were just a lot longer and a lot more gags in the action scenes. Just because I really like how James Cameron and Steven Spielberg, their action scenes, like, you know, like Indiana Jones or Terminator 2, it seems like they just keep going and going. And killing somebody is actually really hard. That's something Alfred Hitchcock said. And that's why Alfred Hitchcock, in the movie he did with Paul Newman, they're trying to kill somebody in the kitchen, and it's just like really, really difficult. And they end up smashing his head through the oven, and like squeezing the head and then grabbing the knife and stabbing him. And, you know, with Terminator, like you try and shoot him and you stab him and everything, and it just keeps coming back. And I was just thinking that it's the same for a zombie. Like, you can stab him, you can hit him, but until the brain is kaput, it's going to keep coming at you. So I was just working a lot with that. So, you know, they were cutting the hands off. They had like a couple spears and axes in them, but they kept moving and kept attacking them. So it was a lot funnier and more fun and darker and bloodier and gruesome.
Actually, one thing I definitely appreciated again, talking about the difficulty of killing someone, the reaction they had after sort of everything calms down and they're like, shit, I just killed someone. even if it was the zombie girlfriend, it was like he had to step back and he was a little bit woozy. He's like, what did I just do?
Yeah. Did I just kill Lisa? Yeah.
I wanted to ask about the look of the zombies because I can't quite put my finger on it, but they sort of had a unique look to them. Like they seemed to be, I don't know, more desiccated or darker. I wasn't sure if it was lighting or if it was design.
It was my design was to have all the neighbor stuff was all in a blue tint, and the blue tint, like, you know, there's is cold, lifeless, and all that. And the kids were all in red, green, and yellow, so they should exude like life and happiness and fruition with the contrast of the blue, you know. So they each pop, and also the Romero zombies were more blue. You know, they've been zombies for a while, so they had no life in them, and that's why I was going for that. And all their clothes are also shades of blue. And I remember when we were doing production, people were like talking shit behind my back. It's like, why the fuck are those zombies blue? They look so fucking weird. Like, what's wrong with Peter? Why does he want that? And when you see in the movie, it's just monochromatic, and it works. And I don't think a lot of people do comment on that once the movie's there.
It's so hard to see what something's going to be during production when you're looking at any sort of green screen, anything. You can never tell.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't remember what film it was. Unfortunately, this is going to be one of those sort of half stories, but it's relating to what you were just talking about. But there was something on a set. I listened to so many audio commentaries, they just start to blend together. There was something that was designed on set, and it was a color. I think it might have been a Del Toro movie. And everybody was like, this looks terrible. Like, this is not, like, oh my god, we're working on the worst movie ever. But they weren't thinking in terms of what happens in post. They weren't thinking of the color grading. They weren't thinking of the processes that sort of come after that. And the filmmaker was so aware of what was going to happen down the road that they were taking steps early on to make that feasible and doable and to have the best effect to come out of it. But yeah, the people that are like standing there on the day, they're just, is this person mad?
Yeah, I mean, if I was in their shoe, I'd probably be thinking the same thing. It's like, this looks terrible. Like, what's wrong with them? Yeah, if you have somebody who's organized and knows what they're doing, you know, you're hoping for the best. And I hope that, you know, everybody who worked on the movie was happy in the end. Yeah, it sucks to hear people like questioning you, but you got to also believe in your vision and yourself. So.
And I suspect that's probably the hardest part of any film, as you said, 4 years to get the vision even started, let alone anything else. Because you have your vision, you're trying to explain it in this story, in these tags, in this, it's this film meets this film sort of explanation, which means something different to everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how you interpret any sort of story can come out so very differently. As far as I'm concerned, Bird Box is what happens when somebody does a good version of The Happening. It's basically the same movie as far as I'm concerned, but it's how you take that concept and make it happen. And you hear a concept and it could be how it's done it's everything.
Yeah.
And it's hard to find that trust.
Yeah. Trusting people's taste. Like, a good director would have a good taste, and just trusting on that person's ideas and execution.
So having had the experience that you had, because as we discussed, you'd already shot some music videos and you have some experience in animation and working in television. This being your first feature, was it daunting or was it just rolling into kind of a new paradigm?
What I was really scared about was if I could direct dialogue, like, because everything I've done since, like animation, you can do take after take after take, and then you can splice the dialogue to get the result you want. And if it wasn't good, you can just do ADR after. And if you don't like the performance, you could just reanimate. That's the only thing I was really scared about. Because, you know, music videos, all the music videos I had done, there's no real movie like dialogue part. It's all just visuals. So that's what I was really scared of. But after the first day, I was like, oh, this is easy. Like, you cast good actors and your work is good. Because we got lucky with the actors. It's not like we had a lot of choices. And those kids were definitely the best kids that came in. There were some other options after that, but I really preferred the ones that we got. They just killed it, and they were very prepared. There was one scene we only had 20 minutes to shoot, and we really needed it, like just so that the movie works. And the kids just I think we shot in 2 takes, and it was a pretty long scene, and they just fucking nailed it. So yeah, I was really happy, and they made my life easy.
It was a really good cast, and I was curious, the proof of concept trailer,
Mm-hmm.
the kids did skew definitely younger.
Yeah.
And also featured Finn Wolfhard.
Yeah.
Which anybody who knows the movie probably knows that he was originally slated to be in the film, but
Yeah.
Stranger Things kind of stole him away.
Yeah.
The kids in the actual film, the kids in the actual film do skew a little bit older, or it feels like it from just what I could see.
They are older. When I did the original trailer, I wanted the kids to be, around 11, 12, and then when I was working with them, being around these kids who were that young, I was like, holy shit, like they could never kill zombies.
Let alone fight somebody who's been a zombie keeper and has a gun. It's like,
yeah. So I when I decided to make the movie, I thought we would get kids who are a bit older also, so we can maybe get them for a couple more hours on set. I don't know if you do get them for more hours. I think it's possible. And just so that when they do fight zombies, you could really feel that, like axing somebody, they could actually axe somebody in the head and kill them.
That was something I dug in the movie, because when they were using the axe, it wasn't just like hack, 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 hack. Because once you like stick an axe in something, you have to pull the axe out.
Yeah.
And axes are heavy, and it's like that was kind of acknowledged that this was not the best weapon ever.
Yeah, yeah. I like that scene. I think that's the funniest scene. When he axes him, coming out of the closet.
Oh yeah, when he's still alive?
Yeah. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, and then Finn Wolfhard. It's funny because before Stranger Things, his dad was contacting me a lot. Hey, what's going on with Dead Shack? What's going on with Dead Shack? And as soon as I got the green light for Dead Shack, and my buddy's like, hey, your little buddy, his show has got a 9 out of 10 star on IMDb, and it just came on Netflix. It's amazing. So I look it up. I was like, holy shit. And then I contact his dad. It's like, hey, so we finally got the green light, and I would love to have Finn in the movie. Because I really liked Finn from the get-go, and I thought he would have been a great Jason. In the trailer, he's Colin in the proof of concept, but I thought he was such a good actor that you could make Jason dorky but cool and funny. And if I'd have gotten just like a dorky Jason, he wouldn't have been as funny and not as cool. So I thought Finn's talent could make that character work. And then they said that they were interested, but Stranger Things season 2 was starting the exact same day as we were starting to. So, who knows if it would have happened, but there was a chance. And then the movie would have probably made a lot more money, and I probably have another movie on my shelf already.
Though I do think that having it skew a couple years older for the kids helped the film.
Yeah.
Because it would have been harder to believe, as you said, any of the stuff that happens physically.
By the time we would have shot the movie, Finn would have been, I think, 14, which is a year younger than Jason is in the movie. Because he's actually 15 years old when we shot the film. So.
And he looks young.
Jason?
Finn?
Yeah, but by the time we would have shot the movie, he would have been, I guess he would have looked like a 13-year-old, but he would have been 14. Yeah, and it's where some people, I got some people who liked the movie, but they said they didn't like how it was casted because the actors don't look like 18 years old. It's like, no, they were actually 14, 15, and 16. And then
that I could believe.
Yeah.
And then they say that the girlfriend looks like she could have been a kid. It's like, no, she was 28 years old. It's like, guys, just look at the IMDb page, and everything is pretty accurate.
We had a moment watching. Dustin had me watching a movie called The Triangle.
I don't know that one.
And it had these people that were stranded on a boat in this kind of time loop. I think Liam Hemsworth is in it, and he's playing a character who's like
18, supposed to be 18.
And I'm just looking at Dustin and I'm like, this is bullshit. He's like fucking 30 years old. Like, I do not buy this. And then we went on IMDb, and I think Liam Hemsworth was like 19 or 20 at the time.
No way.
So it was just, I mean, some people just look older or younger. Like,
yeah.
I do think that the difference in the kids, like if you did skew younger, it amps up sort of the peril because you have these younger kids who are struggling harder and people fear more for children. And just looking at that proof of concept trailer, I felt like the humor might have also been a little bit amped up because they were younger, but you also get a lot of pros from having them a few years older because, like you said, they're more capable. There's different kinds of dynamics. The actors themselves might be more skilled or capable or whatever. The work hours, those pesky child labor laws.
Yeah. I think a big part of it, though, is what the audience is looking for, because when I see that proof of concept trailer and they're swearing, it's like, oh, these kids are too try hard. I'm trying to be too edgy. I generally don't favor kids in films. I don't want them to live. It's like, get them out of here so that people that I can actually believe are in this are going on doing whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
Especially in a horror film.
I really like the way Shane Black, really like the way he directs and writes kids, because they feel real and the adults talk to them like adults and they make fun of them. I just hate in movies when kids act like the image of how adults want their kids to act. You know what I mean? Like, not how kids actually talk. Because I remember when I was like 11 to 13, I was already swearing when I was talking to my friends. Like, I would never do that with my parents, in front of my parents. Like, you know, I would get grounded. But with my friends, we would say fuck all the time and like piece of shit and you pussy. And in the 80s, you know, you wouldn't say that anymore, but the F word. That's the way we would talk. And when people get upset about that, it's just like, look, you're just not being realistic, and you're trying to have an image of what your kids are like angels, but they're not like that with each other.
What was it like? You said the shoot was 14, 15 days. What was it like working on set with those actors? Some of them kind of more famous than others?
No one was famous except for Lauren Holly, but she was sweet and she was no bullshit. So whenever she wasn't happy because we did do a mistake, like the shooting was not, it was fun, but it wasn't. It was just fucking cold. Nothing was working. It was just stressful every day. Ripping out half the pages of my storyboards, like all the action scenes had to be shortened, and I had to figure out ways to shoot every scene more simply and cut out everything that isn't really crucial to the story. So it was just really hectic. And Lauren Holly, you know, she could see it, and at the end she tells me, this is your first movie. I know it's hard, but from a lot of movies I've been on, this is like, you guys are like climbing Mount Everest here. This is insane. And if you ever need, just like, do you think you have a big piece of shit here, or do you think you can salvage it? It was like, no, I think I could work on it. I think I can make it work in post. And she then said, well, if ever you need anything, you have my number. Don't hesitate to call. I'll do anything I can to help you. She's just like no bullshit and very realistic. And that's what you need. You need people there to not lie to you and be there with real answers, you know? So that was really nice. And, you know, we gave her a shit trailer, not what she wanted, and the heater was not working. And instead of like talking shit about us, she just tells us straight face, like, hey man, what the fuck is this? It's like, oh yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm so sorry. And then we just got our new trailer. Just shit like that. And then everybody else, I think no one really believed in the movie except for the actors. The actors were always giving it their all and not complaining. Like, it was fucking cold and they were like shivering, and they just be like, yeah, don't worry, let's just shoot. Let's just like shoot as soon as we can and never talk shit. While some other people offset, like the third AD who got fired after doing that, she's like, what the fuck is Peter directing this movie? He's never even directed a movie before. My first AD is like, you need to shut the fuck up. And then I think he fired her after that.
Every filmmaker has a first movie.
So, you know, this is my story. This is my idea. I worked on it for 4 years. I put a lot of money behind this. I deferred all my payment as director so we can get an extra day of shoots so we can make the movie work. And you're complaining about me giving you a job? Like, that was insane.
It is one of those films that when you watch it, I mean, the performances are all there. It's like the money's on the screen. Like, the blood, sweat, and tears is all there. You kind of like, there's no bullshit about it. And
I wouldn't have known about any of the issues behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Or that it was your first film. Like, it's polished.
Cool, thanks.
And it's also really interesting to hear some of these stories and some of the stuff that I've discovered kind of in my research, because, what was it, like a week ago? Dustin had me watch The Void.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are our friends who did that.
Yeah, and I listened to the audio commentary, and they were talking about hard days in the cafeteria, just throwing out storyboards, and they had a location that was perfect, and they lost the location like a week before they went in to shoot it. Just so many of the issues that they were having sounded like the exact same issues, just in a different context that kind of you were having on Dead Shack, and I kind of wondered if that was just the nature of low-budget indie filmmaking, or
I think so, because
Canadian filmmaking.
I was talking to the crew we had on set, and they were saying, yeah, you never shoot what you have planned. You're always trying to shoot as much as you can, but if you're lucky, you get 80%, and we were getting 40%. I actually thought I had no movie at the end. Do I even have like an hour worth of film? It was really stressful. But yeah, they were saying TV shows never get their days. Like, no one ever gets their days. I guess the Marvel movies gets what they want. Yeah.
I wanted to talk about the pacing of the film in relation to, I guess, a lot of your other work as well. We did a quick buzz through your student animated film Glitch, and I showed Dustin Breakfast with Liz, just to sort of show him some of the stuff that you've done to create some visual narrative sort of continuity or something. And I noticed your use of color and your use of pacing. You have this very slow, deliberate movement, both in the camera and in the narrative. And I wondered if that's something you do consciously, or if that's something that is just sort of how you produce work, or if it's influenced by other filmmakers that you love.
I don't know. Like, I don't see that in my work, but I do always try and make like George Miller and George Lucas, they say that they want to make movies that are kind of like silent movies, which is Hitchcock does too. So even people who don't speak the language, they can still understand what they're watching and enjoy it. And that's what George Miller did with Mad Max, and George Lucas did with Star Wars, and almost all of Hitchcock movies, they're very visual, the narrative. And that's what I try and do, so that just by looking at it, you're entertained and intrigued and you want to watch more. I don't know if I succeed all the time, but that's what I want to do.
There's also a sense of, for lack of a better word, decay. I've noticed things that are run down. In your videos, you use a lot of like urban areas, alleyways. In the film, you have the cabin and the house where Lauren Holly's family lives. Mm-hmm. They're kind of well kept up, but you feel the age. They're not kind of modern. There's
especially from the outside where you have garbage laying around, paint's not quite kept up.
Paint chipping, rust, debris, detritus, whatever. Again, I wondered if that was something that you consciously do, or...
I do like texture, and it's a lot cheaper to film. I would love to do a super clean sci-fi movie one day, but those are just so expensive because you can just find a shitty building and a shitty alley that looks great on camera, that has all the texture, and like it has a history and a color. But to fabricate something really clean and sharp that doesn't look cheap, it just costs so much money. And I would love to do a sci-fi movie one day that has a big budget. My plan is to make really realistic sci-fi movies that cost like $200 million, but I don't know if I'll ever get to do that.
That kind of texture also grounds a scene or grounds a film.
Mm-hmm.
Because out in the real world, like, not everything is always pristine and staged the way a set might be. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how many people do you know their house is like spotless?
Or even if you just look at the lighting, the differences that you can do there. In a horror with the more decayed texture, it's usually a bit dimmer, whereas a sci-fi, everything is brightly lit. Every last corner you can see.
Yeah, it's very fabricated. Like every spot you see is money. Like somebody had to do that. Somebody had to light that.
Even if you look at like Elysium, which is set in a dump, it's all well lit. It's all very manicured.
Yeah.
It's a well coiffed dump. When I found out that there was the storyboards that you had gotten rid of, the bits that you had excised in order to make your time and your budget work, I know you also do graphic novels. I know that that's something that you have published works. And it occurred to me, like, comics is something where, other than the actual publishing, there is no budget for telling the story. If you can draw it it's there. And I wondered if that had ever occurred to you, because I know Shaun of the Dead did that with some of their deleted scenes. They had an artist do, I'm not sure if it was a storyboard artist or just someone that Simon Pegg knew, illustrated the deleted scenes. Which were included on the DVD, and then I think there was a Shaun of the Dead comic that kind of followed that. And I know it's not the easiest thing to get something like that launched, and obviously Dead Shack was difficult enough to launch as a film. But was that temptation ever there to possibly do Dead Shack sort of as a comic book and to put in all that stuff that you couldn't have?
Because I give out the storyboards like for free as a PDF. I could send it to you guys, and you guys can read it, and then I don't think anyone really cares. Like, no one even cares about the movie. So why would I even bother losing more?
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I guess, it's already out of your system, right? So
yeah, it's there. So if you are interested and you really do care that much, like, you could just get it. It's like, it just hit me up. I'd rather spend time on creating, a new comic or a new story. Like, I want to do One Star Land 3 one day, the comic book, and I want to finish A King's Vengeance, which is my new graphic novel. It's supposed to be 3 books. I finished 1. And then I also have a story for a sequel after that for another 3 books. And then I'm working on a kid's book that I want to do, which is only going to be about 30 pages. And also my grandmother's biography, which is like a horror love story. And that is something I really want to do. So I'd rather spend time on that as opposed to do something I've already done that nobody was interested in. I'm hoping that the other things I'm doing, people will be more interested. It'd be nice to have something that does so well that it pays for everything else,
Yeah.
I haven't done that yet. Like the TV shows I've done did pay for Humans and a couple other things. And then Humans, after 8 years, did pretty well, and then we made some money there, and then that paid for other things, and now nothing is paying for nothing, so it's just really tough time. So I'd rather not work on Dead Shack, especially because no one's even seen the movie.
Beating a dead horse or an undead horse.
Yeah.
Certainly then, if you're lucky, after a future success, people might just come back and be like, hey, here's this film that nobody's really seen, and you can do a minimal amount of work to just be like, hey, it's a new film by me.
Yeah.
You all know me now.
If I do become successful one day and people want to, like, I get offered to do Dead Shack, I would say, yeah, let's do a trilogy and shoot all 3 and start with the prequel, redo the one that we shot and do it better and the way it was supposed to be. Even rewrite it better because we're better writers now, and do a 3rd one. That'd be awesome,
That would be cool.
How did you guys like the Evil Dead remake?
We both took a deep breath right there just to stumble over each other. I'll say, Mike, you go first.
I dug it. I thought the ending was a little bit bonkers.
I thought it was so cool, though.
But yeah, it was. Like, I didn't have the expectation that it was going to be a continuation or a prequel or even really like a, beat for beat kind of remake. I knew Fede was going to kind of do his own thing, and I know he was empowered to kind of do his own thing with a few sort of caveats. And for what it was, I thought it was a bang-up horror movie, and I'm sad that kind of we didn't get more, but I'm glad that it exists.
Yeah.
And I, for one, I also loved it, and one of the things that I definitely noticed, I think so many people had the wrong expectations going in. A lot of people, when they think Evil Dead, they think Army of Darkness. They think horror comedy.
Yeah.
But if you look at the original Evil Dead, that one was effectively straight-up horror.
Yeah.
And so going into it, that's what I was expecting. And I loved how they would sort of torture themselves.
Yeah.
If you're possessed by an evil spirit, imagine that person's in there feeling them cut their own face off.
Yeah.
And they can't do anything about it. The friends see it. And even just having the person who starts seeing the evil being a drug addict who would lie to do anything, that's a good explanation as to why it doesn't all come out at once and why people don't believe what is obviously happening. And I always appreciate having that kind of writing where it's like, okay, we don't have to jump right in, but it makes sense that not everybody knows right off the huff.
Yeah, and I read before that, because I was keeping up tabs on what how the production is going, and then I read that, they're not making a comedy out of it, just straight up horror. It's like, fuck. I was like, I want another horror comedy. I love horror comedies. And then when I saw it in theaters, it was like the scariest movie I had ever seen.
The trailers I remember I had a friend who wasn't a horror person, and I'd kind of introduced her to horror through Drag Me to Hell.
Oh, really? Cool.
And she really dug that. And she was like, okay, yeah, there's a side of horror that I can deal with.
Yeah.
So then when Evil Dead came out, I remember saying, like, I'm having trouble finding someone to go. And she was like, well, that's like Sam Raimi, right? And I was like, yeah, it's a remake. He's a producer, whatever. And she's like, I'll go with you. And I'm like, no. I don't think this is your bag. And she's like, no, I'll go. And I was like, look, if you can make it through the trailer, if you can make it through this 2-minute trailer,
Yeah.
you can come to the film with me. And she lasted like 15 seconds.
No way.
And it was a good thing she didn't go because, I mean, it's intense. It's a really intense film.
My girlfriend, she was covering her face. She was watching the movie with one eye, like with my jacket on her face. I was sinking my nails into my legs. And my best friend at the time, he was on my left, and he was like, stressing and like grabbing his face. And then we all at the end were like, oh my god, that was amazing, that was the scariest shit ever, and we just couldn't stop talking about how scary it was.
Yeah.
Hearing people's reactions to horror movies, I ever so often feel like the odd man out because I was laughing. Maybe I'm a bit more of a psychopath than I think.
Were you laughing at that movie?
During it, yeah. Someone takes an axe, or like when he took the crowbar to the hand and it splits right down the middle, I burst out laughing. That's hilarious. A good injury in a film
I was laughing.
makes me laugh every time.
Like in horror, like oh my god, like holy shit, when she like splits her tongue and then makes out with the girl.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh!
I was like,
That was
I love
great.
shit like that. It's so fun.
I got a little more appreciation for the movie because I didn't really know any of the cast going in.
Mm-hmm.
But since seeing that movie, I'm a huge fan of Moorhead and Benson's Spring.
Who's that guy?
Moorhead and Benson,
Yeah.
they made Resolution, Spring, The Endless, and they have another one coming out.
I met those guys when I was doing Dead Shack was doing the festival run. I hung out with those a bit. They're great.
Yeah, I love their stuff.
Yeah.
And the guy who read from the Necronomicon,
Yeah.
Lou Taylor Pucci,
It's their friend.
he's in Spring.
Yeah. They were telling me
And-
that. I remember that.
Yeah. So it kind of retroactively improved. Like, I have another into the movie that I really enjoy because I like Lou Taylor Pucci.
Nice.
Anyways.
I was wondering, you said you have a whole lot of stories, ideas, stuff that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
What would sort of a teaser plot be for the big $300 million sci-fi that you'd love to have done if someone just threw money at your face right now?
Well, I'm working on Once Our Land, an animated film, but I would love to do more of those, or maybe a series. My new comic book, that's one of the $80 million movies I was going to do. It's like a fantasy revenge story with a king that gets resurrected 25 years later after his death, and then he has revenge on the person who killed him and his family. And then it turns out like the killer is his son. So that's a movie that's pretty fucking crazy. It would be really expensive. I thought of that movie after, like since I was a kid, I wanted to make a movie like that, and then I pitched the idea to Dav, who I was working with, who co-wrote Dead Shack, and then he came up with a huge story, beginning, which is like most of the first book, the comic that I just released, and then together we figure out the ending, which would be book 2 and 3. And it's just such a condensed story that'd be a really good intro to that world. It's kind of like RoboCop meets Conan. Yeah, RoboCop meets Conan the Barbarian. So that's one of them. And then there's another one I wanted to do, which was with Phil, my other co-writer buddy. And that one was a mix of Blade Runner with Elysium, that Matt Damon movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know that the base that they're in space. So think of that, but like maybe 100 times bigger, and it's like Blade Runner city in it, and it's about a detective noir movie with like giant guns, and it's like if Blade Runner was an action movie in space, in like a space station city. So that's another one. I would love to do that one day.
Perhaps even in a Dyson sphere. Go extra fancy.
What's it
with your giants? The idea is that you encase a sun in an entire construct that will absorb its power from basically all directions and can use that as basically its power source. Imagine the sun as the power source and the Dyson sphere encloses it.
holy shit, how do you do that?
Obviously, it's entirely theoretical, but if you're talking sci-fi, why not?
Yeah.
Just
That sounds awesome. I have a couple other animated movies that I wrote. One of them is Corporal Captain Jr. It's a kid who, his dad was a corporal, his mom's a captain, and so they call him Corporal Captain Jr., but he's actually not a corporal nor a captain, but he's Earth's last savior from these things that came and killed everybody. It's just it's kind of like a DreamWorks Pixar type movie, animated movie. So I'm working on that. Hopefully, maybe if once I land the movie, like the animated movie does well, then people would be interested in doing that one. But right now, no one gives a fuck. It's really hard when you've made one movie that no one's seen and a lot of people don't like. And I had a couple TV shows that haven't. The first one did okay, and this other two didn't do well at all, and I didn't have any control on those shows. So it's really hard for me to be like, no, this is how it was supposed to be, and you should believe me.
You just reminded me, one of the things that we wanted to talk about is sort of the marketing and reception of the film and sort of the failure of that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, watching it, like we said right at the top, this is a movie that we don't understand why it's not on all the streaming services. Like it's tailor-made for that kind of thing. Like it's the browsing through, oh, what's this? It's a cool poster. You sit down, you watch it for 90 minutes, and you go, that was fun.
If you have the poster I did, it's not a...
That's what I'm hearing, that the Japanese messed it up.
No, the Japanese one, that's a good one. They used my poster, and they just
did?
Dead Shack with a Japanese writing of Dead Shack in yellow. It was like, oh, it looks dope. It's all the other ones that look like fucking ass. Like the one that you have, it looks like shit with the big...
Yeah, I ordered a Blu-ray, and it...
Ugh.
It's a monstrosity, yeah. I wanted the format, though. I'm tempted, though. I'm tempted to buy the DVD with the right cover.
Like I said, let me know if the size of your DVD cover. I'll just send you the image.
Or buy the Japanese one as well.
Yeah, buy the Japanese one.
So where was the failure in this?
Well, when we did our festival run, it didn't win any awards. I think because it was a horror comedy. When I went to the festival run, most movies competing were like artsy horror or straight up horror, and not so much horror comedy. So we weren't in any real competition except for Fantasia, and then we won second prize for Best Canadian Film, but we lost to Wolf Cop 2. I guess nobody was really interested, and the movie didn't really do that well. So Shudder came in, and they bought the movie out and pretty much saved our ass. Shudder is really good at paying movies a good chunk of money as opposed to all the other streaming sites. But Shudder is so not a lot of people have it, so not a lot of people get to see your movie.
Even I love horror movie, but I can't really justify getting an entire streaming service dedicated to that.
Yeah, I mean, I got Shudder a couple times, and then I watch all the things I want to see, which is mostly the documentaries. I love documentaries on movies and horror movies, and they have some really good ones. So our movies on Shudder worldwide, except for Canada. Yeah.
Why? Why is that always the case?
It's because we had a different distributor in Canada. So we had Raven Banner in Canada and XYZ around the world. And XYZ really killed it. And Banner, they sold it to a few things.
Is there a chance that you get the rights back at some point? Is this a temporary thing?
I think we do get it back, but then I don't think anybody would care. It's like, oh, cool. How well did your movie do? Not so well. It's like, okay, well, here's another $1,000, and we'll have it for 10 years. I don't know how it works. I have no idea, but I just feel like no one makes money off movies unless you're a big studio or a big distributor. And for me to continue doing movies like this is to hopefully get more experience and get hired to make those big movies I want to make. Or I'd love to do a Star Wars movie. That's a dream of mine. But, who knows if that'll ever happen.
I remember seeing the DVD at a Walmart, and I passed it up for some reason. I think it was like $15, and
Yeah, that movie was at Walmart. I remember that.
I went home. For some reason, I just didn't buy it that day, and I decided after I'd gone home that I should have bought that. That was like Peter's movie, and I love humans and soundtrack, and we never talked about the soundtrack. And I went back the next day, and it was gone. So
really?
Whoever Yeah,
And for him to pay over $10
Off my
for a
movie.
Blu-ray or a DVD is insane. This guy doesn't pay double digit for no media.
yes, I do. I do. I support where I can. And you were amazed that I saw one out in the wild because you hadn't seen one.
Yeah, I've never seen one.
I felt so bad when I heard that when I was buying my copy, I almost shipped you one. I was like, Peter needs to have a copy.
Yeah. And what was tough too is like with the Kickstarter, we actually lost money from doing the Kickstarter because we had to pay more taxes, so we ended up losing money.
Really?
And I was not legally allowed to give out free copies of the movie. So everybody who gave money and was supposed to get a free copy of the movie, I'm not allowed to give a copy because it'd be illegal. Don't ever do a Kickstarter to raise money because there's so much legal shit, and with taxes and all that, it's just not worth it.
Well, even like with shipping.
Yeah, and then
Like I've heard people lose their shirts on shipping.
yeah. I with Wonderland 1, I was shipping it through Canada Post, and then Wonderland 2, I figured out that you can ship through Chit Chats, which is a great shipping. It's Canadian US, so they grab your stuff, they drive it to the US and ship it there. Instead of paying $25 to ship something to the US, it can cost you like $5.
Yeah.
Yeah, but ship in Canada, whether you ship, it's crazy. If you ship somebody in BC and you're in BC, it's $15 to $20, and if you ship somebody from BC to Quebec, it's $15 to $20. It's so weird.
That's about right. It's all within Canada. It's the same price.
And anything with Canada Post is like 3 times, like, shipping to UK is $70 to $80, and with Chit Chats, which ships through the US, is $30. It's such a big difference.
Do we want to talk about the soundtrack?
I was actually going to bring up a bit earlier that when I learned that you almost had Finn there who ended up doing Stranger Things, I thought that was pretty hilarious because when I was watching the film, I was saying, man, this sounds a lot like the Stranger Things soundtrack. It sounds very Stranger Things to me.
Yeah, well, which is, it's weird that people say that because it's very John Carpenter inspired and Tron.
Which is, of course, the same thing that inspired Stranger Things, so it's all sort of going in the same direction.
Yeah, and doing the kids, like, Amblin style thing, which is also what Stranger Things wanted to do, or did. It's because we're all kids who watch the same movies growing up in the 80s, and that's what we love. We love John Carpenter, we love Spielberg and Goonies and horror movies, The Thing, so it just made sense, and then we just all came out at the same time or around the same period, and whoever did it first, everybody else is a copier, even though we're not. We're just like, that's all what we wanted to do. And the fact that I did that proof of concept trailer with Finn before I went on Stranger Things proves that, we all had the same idea. Yeah.
Well, I also feel that the music is, I mean, I know you primarily from Humans,
Mm-hmm.
and Humans has a very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's
Ambient synth?
It's kind of an ambient, sultry
Yeah.
synth kind of, and so it felt like, okay, this is Humans scoring a film because it's got sort of that score attitude to it, but I mean, it felt very much like Humans music, so
Yeah.
it didn't seem like a huge stretch to me. It just was like, this is a horror movie, and this is music that fits the tone and the...
Also, it's like the only thing I could do with the budget I had. I would love to have an orchestra and drummers and percussion and all that, but that costs money. And to do a synth score is like, I have all that stuff. So it's just normal that with the budget I had, that's what I was going to do. And also, I wanted to do a synth score because I wanted to be like John Carpenter.
Well, I'm glad you had that limitation. I don't know if that was...
A compliment or an insult?
Well, my next movie, the One Star Land, I should be doing the score, and that'll be like, because it takes place in 1830s Germany, so it'll be very much like classical music, more like Mad Max and John Williams. So that'll be very different. But for the horror movie that's inspired by 80s horror movies, it just fits perfectly, So depending on what you're working on, you do what fits best. It'd be really weird to watch a period movie with a synth score.
And there's two soundtracks. There's the soundtrack of like the score, and then there's a soundtrack that features the songs.
So I did some songs for the movie. If I had more time, they probably would have been different, but they're fine.
And both of those soundtracks are available for purchase.
Sorry?
By the way.
I said, and both of those soundtracks are available for purchase on iTunes and various other...
Yeah, and the score is available on vinyl, pink vinyl, by Lakeshore Records. And it's pretty awesome. They're a great company. And they have a ton of them left, so...
It actually feels like you got like slightly more legit treatment on the soundtrack than you did on the distribution of the film.
Yes and no. We kind of got screwed over with that because they had a campaign, and Shudder was supposed to release it at a date that we all agreed on, and then they just changed the date all of a sudden. It's like, okay, it's coming out next week. And it didn't work with Lakeshore Records' promise that we had a whole a schedule and everything, so they just they want to release it with the movie at the same time, and it just fucked everything up. Yeah, so I got screwed over in that sense too.
So this whole thing has been a teaching opportunity.
Just like learning, it's just like everything. I wish I had some positivity stories. It's Saturday. You should feel.
When I listened to I mentioned the Void commentary that I watched like a week or two ago, and I remember coming out to Dustin and just telling him how bummed out I was listening to the commentary because I don't know if they recorded it like really soon after production and before release or what, but the wounds were still very, very raw. Mm-hmm. And like so much of what they were talking about is kind of mirrored in, you enjoyed the opportunity to do it. I'm guessing you're more or less happy with the overall end product, but you definitely look back on it and it's like, that was not an easy thing, and I have the bruises to prove it.
Yeah, it was definitely the hardest thing I did. My bandmate Robbie, he saw me because we had weekends off from the film because you have to do that legally, and he said he saw me and I gave him a hug. He's like, "You never give me a hug, and you look like a zombie, and I was pretty scared for you." And I remember I was seeing a girl at the time, and I didn't want to see her because I just wanted to go home, have a couple of drinks, and just go to bed. I was really just drained.
You didn't want to have to pretend that everything was going okay. And...
Yeah, it was a really hard time.
Well, on a good set, a movie's supposed to kind of take all your attention and energy.
Yeah.
On a rough set, it probably takes a bit of your soul, too.
Yeah, I mean, I hope never to shoot in winter again. I think that will just make things so much easier. I think a lot of the problems we had was winter, how cold it was, amongst, besides the budget. And I hope I never have to defer my payment like I did to make a movie work. But I was willing to do that because, it's my first movie, and I'm pretty happy with the end product. And if I didn't do that deferment, the movie would have been shorter, would have not worked, story-wise. And then that's my calling card, a really bad movie that is unwatchable.
Yeah, you really need it, at least sort of represent your original vision, because it is, it's what you show people. It's your portfolio, right?
And I think it's a fun movie. When I watch it every once in a while, if I was just watching it, just for watching it, if I didn't know me, I'd be like, oh, this is pretty solid for a low-budget movie.
100%.
Well, I bought a copy. Oh. And because it didn't show up in time, we rented it on YouTube. So I don't know if you see anything from that. But...
No, I don't think so. I wonder if it does, though. I'm really curious. Yeah, because there's got to be some people, quite a few people like you guys who bought it or did something. I know that Shudder's supposed to, get the money back that they paid for the movie, but how long am I supposed to wait? Is there a limit?
How many views were on the YouTube, Dustin?
I don't know if we want him to know how few there were.
Views of the movie?
Yeah.
How many? People who watched the whole movie and rented it?
The ones who rented it on YouTube, it was 24. It was not good.
Oh, 24 people?
It was a low number?
Wow. So maybe, it makes sense that I haven't seen any money because, like I said, no one's seen the movie. No one even knows about it. And even some of my friends, are good friends of mine, they haven't seen the movie.
And that's the fun thing about any sort of media, any sort of art.
Yeah.
It either gets that foothold or it doesn't. People tell us this is a good podcast, but 2-3 years of doing it, and we do not have the numbers to show that.
Yeah.
And yet you have other stuff which is garbage, which does great.
Yeah, everything you do, you can't expect your friends to back you up. That's not why you should be doing art. And I'm never mad at people who don't listen to my music or don't watch my movies. It's just like it's my fault. There's something I did that didn't catch their attention, and
I will disagree with that because there's some sort of magical thing where it just catches the zeitgeist and it spreads.
yeah,
Because you'll have crap like Twilight, which will glom on. That is not quality. But then you'll have great stuff which is rediscovered later, as they'll say,
yeah.
and becomes popular later.
I was watching the documentary on what the fuck happened to this movie about Big Trouble in Little China, and you guys should watch that. Do you know that YouTube videos? What the fuck happened to this movie?
No.
No.
I think it's on Joe Blow. Joe Blow, dun, 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 Joe Blow. And he does a lot of and what the fuck happened to this movie? And Big Trouble in Little China, I remember watching it as a kid, and that movie blew me away. It was the fucking best, fun, action, dirty movie.
It's all in the reflexes.
Yeah. And then when I was older, I found out that movie flopped. I was like, what? How does that
Oh, yeah.
flop? And then you watch the Joe Blow thing, and they explain the whole why it happened. And yeah, it's pretty. You never know. So even when
The Thing flopped because E.T. came out and people wanted happy aliens.
And Blade Runner,
Yeah.
which came out the same year, also flopped.
But Blade Runner, I understand why it flopped, because it's really long and boring at parts. I've always liked Blade Runner as a kid, but trying to show it to my friends, they all thought I was crazy. And, and sometimes I would watch the movie and fall asleep, but it always stayed with me. I always remember watching the visuals and loving the story, but I always wished that Blade Runner was more of an action movie. And if it was more of an action movie, which is how they promoted it, that movie would have been a huge, huge success. But it wasn't that movie. But Big Trouble in Little China, that is an action, fun, easy ride. And that movie flopped. So, yeah.
It's got a lot of things going on, and it also has a title that...
Which one, The Thing?
Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's that movie even about? You see that? You're like, is this a bad Asian movie?
Yeah, and
I think that's a movie that, again, same as you, discovered it as a kid and loved that movie then and love that movie now.
yeah.
But I think back then, you either had to really dig Kurt Russell or John Carpenter and be like, I want to see the next thing that they do, because it's like Buckaroo Banzai. It's not an easy thing to market.
Yeah, especially at that time, because the fighting in Big Trouble is pretty, they're breaking bones and shit. And I think that's, as a kid, you're like, fuck yeah, this is cool. I remember when I watched it again for the first time in 15 years, I think I watched it again 8 years ago. I remember that scene where they're fighting the two gangs in the alley. It was like, oh, this is kind of cheesy. And then they start breaking the bones, and you're like, holy shit, this is awesome. I love this movie. And then watching that Joe Blow thing yesterday, they said, yeah, they had 2 days to shoot that, and a lot of it was just make it up on set, and it's pretty crazy because that movie, a lot of it was really clever filmmaking, and they had a really solid team. And the producers didn't know how to market the film, and they said that Kurt Russell's character is unlikable, he's not heroic, he's a loser. We should have the Asian guy is the real hero in the movie, and he's not. So they asked John Carpenter to shoot a scene at the beginning where this old man tells the Asian best friend that Kurt Russell is heroic. They show John Carpenter as yeah, and that guy, that's fucking bullshit, man. That scene did not need to be there, but if I shot it for them, they put it in the movie, and whatever, fuck those guys. And he was so upset with the outcome of that movie because they didn't promote it at all that he went back to doing indie movies, which is too bad because I love John Carpenter when he did those big action movies, those big budget movies.
But speaking of films we enjoy, do you have any recommendations for us before we throw some at you?
Yeah, what did I watch last night? I watched The Hitcher last night for the first time, the original.
The original?
Yeah, I'd never seen it. It's not great, but whatever. It's okay. What's a good movie? Here, you guys tell me the movies that you recommend.
Well, two that I like to recommend to everybody, or I would like to, but it's kind of hard to find the right audience, is Martyrs and Irreversible. Those ones are powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, those ones are hard to watch. But
Those are movies that don't make Dustin laugh.
yeah. Actually, you know what? The show Inside Number 9. Do you know that one?
No.
It's a British BBC show by the guys who did League of Gentlemen. And,
Okay.
they write and direct, I think, every episode, and they star in it too. And they change characters, and sometimes they're totally unrecognizable. And it's kind of like Black Mirror or Alfred Hitchcock Presents. They're always every episode is a new story, so more like Black Mirror. And it's always 28 minutes. There's most of the time there's a murder, a mystery, there's comedy, and some of the best writing, very clever acting and writing. It's just such a treat. I highly recommend it to anybody who wants to just, enjoy a quick 25 minutes, before bed or while you're eating. It's just so fucking funny, and you're always like, oh man, that was so clever and so good. So I highly recommend that. And a lot of people don't know about it, which is insane.
I would throw out Color Out of Space,
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
which was fun. We did a show on that.
Though I will say I preferred Mandy, I think.
Yeah. Those are XYZ guys too. Todd Brown, who helped us with the Dead Shack. He's a great guy. And yeah, I remember Mandy. He's like, yeah, we won the Fantastic Fest Best Film, and that was from Mandy. Yeah, and the director of Mandy is from Vancouver, Canada, and he's the son of the director of Rambo 2. And he did the movie Beyond the Black Rainbow. Yeah, his story is pretty crazy.
I guess we're kind of all sticking to, well, Dustin and I are sort of sticking to sort of horror theme here, but this film shared a cast member with Dead Shack, and that was Jennifer's Body, which is kind of getting a bit of a resurgence in interests.
Because it was marketed poorly.
Terribly, yeah.
And people didn't understand what it was, and now people are realizing that it is a good movie. I have to watch it again. I think I watched it like while falling asleep, and I thought it was a bad movie, like because it was promoted as like teen pop horror movie.
Yep.
And
Expectation is everything.
Yeah, and I think watching it, knowing that, I was just like, oh, I'm just gonna watch this before I fall asleep because it's probably bad, and I can easily fall asleep. So I have to watch it again because I listened to a couple of podcasts with a writer,
Corinne Kusama.
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
well, Diablo Cody wrote it, and Corinne Kusama directed it. Yeah.
Yeah, and those are both really talented artists. So yeah, I definitely have to watch it again.
When you do watch it, watch Kusama's director's cut.
Oh, okay, because there's another edit.
Some of the scenes have been rearranged, and I think there's a few things that were also added, and it just kind of... I think the movie has become sort of rediscovered in a way post-Me Too, because so much of what it talks about is the gaslighting and the way that we objectify and treat women, and it's kind of all wrapped in this crazy pop horror stew. But it does actually have some kind of interesting things to say. And I remember, I'm not a huge fan of Megan Fox, but I remember the scene just before they kill her. Mm-hmm. And I watched it again, and I was actually kind of moved by that scene, and I thought it was pretty powerful. And I heard her in an interview saying that she was prepared for that, as any actor should be, but what she didn't expect was the flood of emotion that came out, because what she was feeling in that moment was how she had been treated by studio executives and the film industry kind of up to that point, because it was kind of perfectly mirrored in what these guys were doing, because they were going to sacrifice her to further their success. Yeah,
that's so weird. Yeah,
and she said she just lost her shit in that scene, and it really helped.
Crazy. Wow.
But yeah, it's interesting, and also just the disconnect between teenagers and parents, the whole concept of like how latchkey kids just kind of left to their own.
Yeah. Oh,
I don't have enough good things to say about that movie.
So you
have to watch it now
again, and it was great. So I should definitely watch it again. That's what you're saying. Like you watched it recently and you really liked it.
Yeah, I watched it a couple times recently because I revisited it, and then I was like, oh, I need to show people this.
Yeah.
So I was like bugging friends, and they were like, oh, this is actually kind of cool.
Cool. Talking about The Color of Space, that director, did you ever see the documentary of him trying to do The Island of Dr. Monroe called Lost?
It's amazing, yeah.
Yeah, that is something everyone should watch. it's so entertaining how crazy that thing happened. Like how all the shit went down, and he was on set. Yeah.
The fact that he went rogue and like never left the island.
Yeah. And it's like, what are you guys still doing here? Oh, we're still shooting the movie. It's like, it's been a year.
It's interesting because like I don't know a lot about Richard Stanley, but I remember going to see Hardware in the theater when it came out.
Really? I've never seen that movie. Is it good? Probably for the time it was.
I have fond memories of it, but I remember even at the time thinking that was a little off.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how it would hold up, and I haven't seen it in like 30 years, I guess, whatever it's been. But after he got canned on Moreau, I don't think he's made a film since then.
No.
Except that documentary.
Yeah.
And now he's got this like Lovecraftian trilogy that he's going to do.
Oh, he's doing a couple?
Well, if this one succeeds, which I think it is, he wants to do at least 2 more.
Cool.
And they're not going to be like direct sequels. They're going to be, it's a Lovecraftian.
Yeah, like the guy who did Reanimator, the director, he did several Lovecraftian movies after that.
Stuart Gordon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Robot Jex, that was awesome.
God, I remember seeing that on video store shelves and just being like, what?
I saw a review of that, and that looked just dumb.
Yeah. No, you gotta watch it. Like, you know how Reanimator is just poorly done, but it's just so fun and amazing, and it ends up being like, it's on my top 10 movies of all time. And Robot Jex, I don't think it's on top 10 movies of all time, but it's just really fun to watch.
A couple that I have always thought were really fun were which is just 7 R's.
Okay.
It follows the
French film
following the world's first murder. They're like, why would you even bother killing him? Like, we're going to die anyway. You're just wasting your time. All right, let's figure out who did it so we can ask him why he did it. And Battlefield Baseball.
What?
Which, to spoil the ending, is basically any sort of...
I can hear him Googling it right now.
Yeah. It's any sport film. It's all the tropes are there, but it's all done through the eyes of a dog that belongs to a drunk hobo.
Holy shit.
That's a Japanese movie.
It's a Japanese movie, and it is balls to the wall. What the fuck is going on? None of this makes any sense until at the end, it turns out the whole thing was narrated by the drunk guy's dog, and it's like, you know what? Now it makes more sense somehow.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it has all the same sports movie tropes.
And what does stand for?
It's just supposed to be a growl.
It's a movie about cavemen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Prehistoric men.
When the movie starts, there's a big growl when the titles card is there. So I'm guessing that's just what it's supposed to be, an automatopoeia.
Oh, recommendation for... I'm sure most people have seen it, but for those who haven't, Battle Royale is like one of the best.
But don't see Battle Royale 2, because, man, they fell hard.
Yeah. I remember watching the beginning of Battle Royale 2. I was like, I'm going to stop now.
There's a part, like, right at the end where for 20 minutes, the main character just shouts about this one country that has to be taken down because they're terrible. And it's basically the States. He's basically complaining about the States for 20 minutes.
Wow.
It's like, wow, this is not it.
That's when the States wasn't even that bad?
No, it was basically about anti-imperialism, and they went after the States hard on that.
All right.
And it was not as good. But yeah, Battle Royale was great. I initially saw a fan music video using the Murder Dolls version of White Wedding to Battle Royale, and I was like, sold! I'm watching this.
I remember watching the Hunger Games, and the whole time I was like, this is like a bad version of Battle Royale. Like, why the fuck would they even do this movie? This is not going to make any money. And it's like, oh, I was wrong.
It's the YA version, yeah.
Yeah, and they're both YA, technically, sort
I guess.
of. But the author of Hunger Games was asked if she got any sort of inspiration from Battle Royale. I was like, never saw it, not going to, I don't want it to influence me.
Really?
Another movie that not a lot of people have seen that I'll throw out is The Dead Don't Die, Jim Jarmusch's zombie movie.
Yeah, I didn't like it, but some of my friends
didn't?
love it. Yeah, for me the comedy just didn't work, and I really like some of his movies, but he's hit and miss for me. Like, I really didn't like the vampire movie he did.
Only Lovers Left Alive.
Yeah, but I love the Johnny Depp one.
Dead Men.
Yeah, Dead Men is amazing. Ghost Dog, those really got me at the right spot. But it's like, I don't know. Sometimes your favorite songwriter writes a bad song that everyone likes, but it just doesn't hit you the same way.
I think that's actually the testament of a good artist. Like, I don't like everything David Bowie's ever done, but he's still one of my favorite musicians. And the fact that I don't like everything he's ever done means that he's gone places and tried new things.
Yeah.
It's not just...
It's not AC/DC releasing the same song across 25 albums.
Noel Gallagher is such a big David Bowie fan. He's like, yeah, and then he put out this new album, and this song was so simple. It was like, fuck, I wish I wrote the song. Like, I'm so angry that I couldn't have written that song before he did. And he's like, wow, you really like David Bowie? He's like, yeah, man, he's the greatest artist of all time. He's like, I heard you don't like Arcade Fire. He's like, no, that fucking band sucks. He's like, David Bowie just did a song with Arcade Fire. It's like, oh, well, that's a shame. But I love Arcade Fire, so, like, fuck Noel Gallagher.
Anyways, that's everything I have.
All right, thanks, guys. That was fun.
So that kind of devolved into a little bit of rambling, but still good conversation nonetheless. We want to thank Peter for joining us here on this episode of FOC Conversations. We encourage everybody to go and check out Dead Shack, clearly available on YouTube for rent or purchase, or on Shudder, or you can buy it on DVD or Blu-ray. Got mine through Amazon. I'm sure there's sellers out there somewhere who might still have some random copies lying around. Check it out. It's a great film. Fun way to spend 90 odd minutes. Peter, if anybody wanted to continue supporting you, find you on social media, where would they track you down?
You can always go to my website, peterricq.com. That's PETERRICQ.com. It's a weird French last name, but it's mine, and I'll take it. And then my my Instagram is at PRICQ, so prick, at prick. Yeah, and then I have my band Humans, that's humans.com, or just Humans on Spotify, Gang Signs, and I'm starting a couple of new bands that I'll be releasing soon. I also have an old band with my ex-girlfriend at the time. It's called Lady Friend, because she was my lady friend. So, yeah, that's really nice, slow beats. Like, it's really easy to listen to, especially if you're a girl, apparently, because a lot of girls like it. So, yeah,
Yeah, you gave those CDs away at the show.
Yeah. Did you get one?
I did. I enjoyed it.
Sweet. Yeah, so all of it is on Spotify and iTunes and everything. So and there's a bunch of videos. The new videos for Humans are pretty awesome. Yeah, going to be releasing some new Gang Signs, a lot of it this year, or now that shit has been slowing down, maybe it'll be closer to next year. Yeah, and then my comic book, One Star Land, onestarland.com. Everything's on peterricq.com, so if you go there, you can spend 5 minutes or like 2 hours. There's a lot of stuff there, and you can...
Sounds like it.
And chill. Yeah.
As soon as we're done this conversation, I'm hopping in a car and I'm going to get the volume 1 of Once Our Land.
Yeah. No, we're I think I'm going to be doing a trailer teaser for that this year. So hopefully the movie will start getting production next year.
And that invitation that I gave to you at the merch table at the show still stands. If and when that does start rolling, you are absolutely welcome to come back.
Sweet.
And promote that on the podcast to our meager following.
Yeah.
We're hoping with everyone stuck at home, they might just, listen to us.
Do people listen to you guys more now, you think, because of this thing?
We have had a bump in numbers, yeah.
Cool. Yay. Yeah, maybe I went from 12 views of Dead Shack to 24 in that last month.
Very possible. I would be curious to see if any metric gets affected by.
Except you don't have the metrics.
We don't know because somebody else does. Yeah, have to go and rent it again. But yeah, so again, thanks so much, Peter, for your time. You've been very generous, and best of luck and all success to you in future projects. And we'll definitely be keeping a tab on what you got coming up next.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Yeah, this was fun. Thanks for having me.
Anytime.
All right, take care.
Peace.
Peace.
And for those of you who stuck through it to the end, that was our conversation with Peter Ricq.
We hope you guys enjoyed that conversation with Peter as much as we did having that conversation with Peter. And we would strongly recommend that you guys go check out his social media as detailed by Peter at the end of the interview. And if your curiosity is piqued, be sure to check out Dead Shack on Shudder streaming service, or you can also rent it on YouTube. I think you might be able to get it off iTunes.
Maybe find it in a bargain bin somewhere.
And you can absolutely find it on DVD or Blu-ray through Amazon. That's where I got my copy from. And he has a graphic novel 2 volumes out right now, Once Our Land, and King's Vengeance, I believe, is also coming out. Peter's been posting on his Twitter some artwork and process stuff about King's Vengeance and the King's Vengeance coloring book. So check out his Kickstarter, check out his social media, check out his music. Peter's a cool guy. He makes cool things.
Don't check out his house, though. That's a little too far.
Also, it really goes against like the social distancing thing.
I'd be more concerned about the stalker portion of it than the social distance.
Well, I mean, if you're going to the door, that's a social distancing thing. If you're standing on the street, staring up at the window at night with a pair of binoculars and a cigarette.
I feel that there's going to be an SNL sketch at some point where someone invades a house, finds the person there, and says, whoa, 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 social distancing. It's going to be a terrible skit, but I don't recall SNL being super great.
When was the last time SNL had a really great skit? Do they even call them skits?
What else would they be?
Sketches.
Sketches?
I don't know. Are we going to get yelled at for this? We get yelled at for everything. All right. Thank you guys so much for checking this out, for downloading, for giving us your time wherever you're listening to this. And if you want to support the show, like, follow, share, and subscribe on all the social media. If you know anybody who digs zombie movies, digs graphic novels, digs groovy music, and you think they might be interested in this, share this on your social media. Word of mouth, it's a powerful tool. We weaponize it whenever we can. We really dug having the opportunity to do this, and we definitely would like to invite more filmmakers to talk about their films and their process. So we got some stuff in the works right now, and hopefully before the end of the year we'll have another in conversation. If we don't, Dustin will have wasted a lot of time doing research.
That is all right by me.
So thanks again, everybody. Stay cool, stay safe. I have been your host, Mike Josick.
And I've been your other host, Dustin Friedenheim,
And we will see you next time
on For Your Consideration.
Take care.
Ta-ta.
Aujourd'hui, c'est déjà fini. C'est une partie précédée. T'as tout mangé, mes pâtisseries. T'as tout mangé avec mes bières.
Spending some time. Oh, fuck. I went and got that pizza and I'm out of my vibe.
You're out of breath now. Those stairs.